It used to be conventional knowledge in the NBA that three-point shots were a bad shot. A lot of people, including famous retired players like Charles Barkley and Chris Webber, would say things like jump shooting teams can't win, or you can't live and die by the three, you can only die by it. And then the Golden State Warriors became a dynasty. They went to the finals 4 times between the years 2014 and 2018 and won the championship 3 of those years. So I wanted to look at the statistical data from those regular seasons and further prove that if you want to win in the NBA, you have to have three-point success. All of this is the import data, and this is the original data frame that we got from Kaggle. Then I did a season-by-season analysis where we created this data frame listing each of the individual seasons from 2014 to 2018, and we got the sum total of the three-point makes, attempts, and shooting percentage across the entire league. And as you can see, the whole of the NBA was shooting and making more three-pointers every single year during this time frame because everyone wanted to emulate the Warriors. The data cleanup, I got rid of every categorical data except for the teams because I need the team names to sort it. And I created 2 data frames. One here where everything is grouped by team and you get the total amount of their statistics across the entire 4-year time frame. And then another one here that I removed all of the defensive stats. So all of the opponent's stats were taken out because for this one I used it for logistic classification, and it turns out when you do classification with these stats you get the exact same results whether it's offense or defense. So there's no point having, for example, field goals and opponent's field goals when both of them yield the exact same result. Here's exploratory data analysis, and I created a bunch of graphs where you can see side by side wins versus losses, three-point shots made versus attempts, and three-point shooting percentage versus winning percentage. And the teams that are of greatest note are the Warriors themselves. As you can see, they have this ridiculously high winning percentage, near 80%, and they also had the highest three-point shooting percentage of the entire league. The second highest three-point shooting percentage was the Cleveland Cavaliers, and that was the team that they faced in each of those 4 years in the NBA Finals, losing to them that one time, ironically in the season where the Warriors won 83 games, which is more even than Michael Jordan ever won. And that year, people remember LeBron James's performance because he carried that team like nothing we've ever seen before. He, in that series, had more points, rebounds, assists, blocks, and steals than anyone on either team. No individual player has ever done that in any series of any length. And the King did it in the NBA Finals in 7 games against a team that won 83 games during the regular season. And the way that he was able to do it was because his team also shot a ton of threes, and they were able to hit a shooting percentage that was comparable to the Warriors. People forget this because of LeBron's heroics and his Herculean feat, but basketball is a team sport, and not even King James could have done it alone. What his teammates provided for him was three-point offense to allow him to down an absolute juggernaut in the Warriors. They effectively beat them at their own game. Here are the statistical correlations where I correlated every single stat against one another. And obviously wins and losses and winning percentage are all going to have perfect correlations with one another. All of it is sorted in accordance with the highest correlation with winning. So three-point percentage here is the highest as I predicted. And then team points and field goals, all these are offensive stats. I created another correlation matrix, which is the exact same one, but it's sorted based on absolute value. So that way you can get defensive stats such as opponent's field goal percentage, opponent's three-point shooting. These are obviously negative correlations, but you can see the strength of the correlation through the absolute value. And it shows that defense really does matter, because right after three-point percentage, the second highest correlation with winning is opponent's field goal percentage. And here's a heat map that shows visually all the correlations between every single statistic in the entire data frame. Then here are some scatter plots showing the y-axis is always winning percentage, because that's what we're trying to gauge. And then this is how team points correlates, obviously positive, and then opponent's points is a negative correlation. Here's field goal percentage, and the number that we are most interested in is three-point percentage. And you can see visually here that there's a very clear and linear positive correlation between three-point shooting and winning percentage in the NBA. Here I did a simple linear regression, starting with a model of three-point percentage versus winning percentage. And the R-squared value you can see is 0.57. And then I did the exact same process for all of the statistics, and then listed them in order of R-squared value, three-point percentage coming in on top, and then opponent's field goal percentage coming in second. And you can see that these numbers are just about in the same order that we saw from the correlation matrix of absolute value. Next, we did a graph of that. So this is the same scatter plot that I showed before, and this line represents the model that I created, showing the relationship between three-point shooting percentage and winning percentage. Next, I did multilinear regression, and I used the winning predictor, which was three-point percentage, and then tested another predictor using every single statistic in the entire data frame, and then kept the highest one. So three-point percentage by itself was the highest R-squared, and then when I added a second predictor, and that predictor was opponent's three-point percentage, we got an even higher R-squared value. And then it continues to go up as we get to 5 predictors in total, with a combination of all these factors and their interactions yielding an adjusted R-squared value that's near perfect. And here these graphs show just how accurate it is. This is with just the one predictor with three-point shooting percentage. This is the two predictors, three-point shooting percentage and opponent's three-point shooting percentage. And then as it goes down, once you get to 5 predictors, you can almost perfectly predict the original data set using this combination of statistics right here. Next, I did logistical classification, and for this one, I tried to predict whether a team would win or lose based on every single statistic in the database. And we see here that team points in this case actually came in at the highest, with three-point shooting percentage coming in surprisingly only 5th highest. And we then mapped this onto a graph with this as the number 1 predictor, which turned out to be the points scored by your own team. And then this here is the three-point shooting graph. And you can see that the fit for the top predictor is a little bit better. It's tighter and it's closer to the true values here, which is showing green. Then I did K nearest neighbors, and I took the predictors I took the top 5 predictors that we got for classification. So these 5 right here, and then I looped through each of them and tried every single possible value of K from 1 to the max of 17, and obviously only took the odd numbers because there's no point doing an even numbered K. And then what we got was that the predictor order themselves only changed here, with field goal percentage coming in above team points. And then the K values consistently end up coming in at max of 17, with only team points and rebounds coming in at lower K values. Interestingly, those are the only two on this list that are not percentage values, other than field goals here. So the number that we see with these scores shows that if you take a lot of nearest neighbors for these categories, you're going to get a better prediction, while a more moderate number of nearest neighbors will provide a better score for these stats in particular. And then here for test models, since we use the original database as the training model, I created a test model based on just randomly sampling 10,000 rows from the original data, and then creating new data frames from that. First, this one where everything is grouped by team, and then this one where it's just the original database minus all the defensive statistics. And for both of these, all of this is just random numbers. None of this is actually real, right? Like, it's not based on any statistics that came from real life or actual basketball played. And for these testing purposes, first I did a test on multilinear, where I took the exact same models that I got from from multilinear in the training model, and then I tested against this random sample. And what we see is that, you see from the graph here, the original data was able to fit almost perfectly on the model, but with the test, it starts to go down. This is based on RNG, but when I run it multiple times, what I tend to see is that right around here is the most consistent, where you don't have the biggest difference from what the model gives you in the training versus test sets. And here you can see that even though it near perfectly predicts the original training data, it is heavily overfitted because you have this precipitous drop in accuracy once you use it against test data that's randomly generated. And then finally, I did the exact same process for the KNN models, where I took the same models with the exact predictors and K values that I got from the training data, and then tested it against the RNG set. And interestingly, with this one, it's actually much closer. The values really aren't too far off, and even for the ones with extremely high K values, really those ones especially are the ones that actually tend to be the most consistent. There's not that much difference between the original training score versus the test score for either of these. In this case, team points came in quite a bit lower than it originally did. And a lot of times when I'm doing these tests, defensive rebounds tends to be a little bit off as well. So the other three numbers tend to be very consistent, though, with field goal percentage, field goals, and three-point percentage with these exact K values, especially with the higher Ks particularly. It seems like the higher the K value, and with these ones set to max, the more consistent results you're getting, where you're getting a model that fits the original data that's used to train it, but also will fit new data used to test against it as well.